the desert of the real.
Welcome to the Desert of the Real. I am your host, Ryan Hudson, and joined with me, as always, is...
Jason Dietz.
Who is just like Shelob.
Okay.
Wait, are you telling me you thought Shelob was just a giant spider?
Yes.
Silly, Jason. Shelob is a giant spider-like being, who is the last of the child of the evil spider-like being on Golant. Shelob is not a spider in the traditional sense, but rather a monstrous ancient being existing before Sauron's rise to power in Mordor. You didn't know that?
No.
That's what you're like, though.
I existed before Sauron and I'm the last offspring of an evil ancient being.
Yeah, because of probably what you'll say in this episode.
Yeah. We've got plenty to say in this episode for sure.
The Desert of the Real is a movie podcast where I forced Jason to watch big blockbuster movies he's refused to watch because he didn't think they were worth his time. We're currently...
This one was not worth my time.
Oh, you're just so wrong.
It was not.
We're finishing up the Lord of the Rings series. This is the last one.
Hallelujah.
No.
Yes.
I'm already...
Watch one more of these, I would quit.
We're going to watch the cartoons next.
No, we're not.
There's at least 4 of them or something. Have you seen the cartoons?
I saw yes, when I was a kid, yeah.
There's The Hobbit. And then there's 2 different movies of the Rings films from the 80s, I think.
I only remember the
2
Hobbit.
different art styles. One's like all rotoscope, so it looks like clearly people were acting it out and they were outlined.
Oh.
And then a couple years ago,
I never even heard of rotoscope before this moment.
Well, it's let's talk about rotoscoping, Deeds. It goes back all the way to the 1920s. Anyway, it was kind of like a revolutionary thing for animation. Probably pioneered or really used through Fletcher, even though Disney used it in his stuff. Look at like the Blue Fairy from Pinocchio and Snow White. Those were rotoscoped to some... Anyway, I digress.
I still have no idea what it is, but apparently it was important. And
essentially, it's outlining a real-life footage of someone moving.
Oh.
As long as you know, one of the Lord of the Rings cartoons was completely rotoscoped. It's just... anyway.
Okay, cool.
We're 2 English language arts high school teachers with graduate degrees, and we attempt to use our academic training to dig deeply into movies. We explore the creativity, philosophy, film studies, and ethics in our films and push you, the listener, to think critically about your entertainment. Maybe you should be thinking critically about the stuff you're watching.
Yeah, because once you put it in...
It doesn't go away, unless you forget about it.
That's true. Or, as we talked about last episode, you are made up of what you put in there.
Yeah.
To a very real extent.
That's why I load it up with, like, TikTok all day.
Yeah, that's why I read books. I mean, since you opened that can.
Thank you for listening. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We did just record. We're recording back to back.
Yeah.
2 Towers and Return of the King because of our summer plans. Dietz is going on a trip.
It was a week for you. It was about 10 minutes for us between the last.
Yeah.
I'm much more bitter about this one than I was about the 2 Towers.
Which is... Bitter is a harsh word for this movie. You know how many bad movies there are and you're throwing around...
Well, right. I mean, this movie is no Birdemic. I mean, there's a lot of flaws with this.
There are birds, though, which I'm sure you'll get into, and I have an argument ready to go, okay?
Like eagles.
In real life.
They used to be one of my favorite birds, and now I hate them.
This movie has affected you.
It has. It has shaped my real life appreciation of raptors.
Imagine you at some national park, whatever. Look, an eagle.
I hate you! Loathe entirely.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Okay, should we pros and cons, and then get into philosophy and ethics and stuff. Okay, so for the record, the extended edition of this movie is 4 hours and 20 minutes. And like I said in the last episode, it was my pleasure to watch that. However, I just want to let you know right off the bat, there are some things that you did not see that's kind of borderline crazy that are not in the theatrical edition. Number one, the craziest one, is when they're at Isengard, they're talking to Saruman up there. You know what happens in the extended edition?
No, I don't.
Wormtongue.
I didn't watch it.
I know. Let me tell you.
Okay.
It's implied in theatrical that the Ents will just keep Saruman in check in the tower. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, I don't ever figure out what happened to him.
Well, let me tell you.
Kind of...
It's crazy what you missed. In the extended edition, Wormtongue appears...
The last one?
Of this one.
He's not in this one, is he?
Oh, he is. And let me tell you about what happens.
Oh.
This is what you missed. Wormtongue appears right behind Saruman. And Theoden, the king of Rohan, he's like... Wormtongue, this isn't you. Like, you know, like, implying, like, we can figure something out for you type of thing. Like, you can leave Saruman. He's more evil. But Saruman, like, insults Wormtongue, calls him a cur, which is a fun insult.
Yeah.
That was also in Star Wars at one time. Like hits him to the side. Wormtongue grabs a knife, stabs Saruman in the back.
Wow.
Saruman falls off the tower... lands on one of those water wheel things on a spike through his body, spins down into the water.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
I know. And then Legolas pulls out an arrow, shoots Wormtongue from the top of the tower.
When in the movie would that have happened?
You saw them talking to Saruman, or is none of the conversation in these?
Maybe like the last I remember seeing Saruman as he was freaking out on his tower while the Ents tore down everything in the last movie.
Well, then you didn't probably see any of that. Then, well, that all happened. The Aragorn,
I don't remember.
All of our main guys, they pick up the Merry and Pippin. They're They're happy they're alive. They're on the back of horses. They're just talking to Saruman at the top of the tower. He gets stabbed and killed. And that's where...
He just kind of vanishes.
Yeah, but there's a death scene. And that's where Christopher Lee, who once again fought in a real war, that's where he told Peter Jackson, that's not what stabbing someone would sound like. If you get stabbed in the back, it's more like, you lose your air type of thing. Because it happened to him in the movie that you didn't see.
That answers one of my questions.
What happened to Sauron?
Yeah, where did he go?
Yeah.
Did he drown? Did he...
No.
Did the eagles come and save him from...
And, like, you get this idea, Theoden is so angry against Saruman. It's like, you poisoned my mind for how long?
Right.
It's, like, personal for him.
Yeah.
There's at least two other pretty big scenes. Maybe not so big. When they go recruit the ghosts...
Yeah.
They say no.
The ghosts say no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the theatrical, there is, I kid you not, a skull avalanche that Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are fighting, like they're running out of. But there are, in real life, hundreds, if not thousands, of those skulls when they're filming that thing. That's just not in the theatrical edition. And then they're running through all these skulls as they're falling. They get out, and they see those ships, and that's when the Ghost King appears again and says, "We will fight."
Oh.
So that's
less awesome.
It's kinda cool if it's ambiguous.
Yeah, I like how they did it.
But you get this scene. You get them on. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are on like the banks, and they're yelling at the pirates or whatever, and they're like we'll relieve you of those ships or something. And Aragorn's like, Legolas, fire an arrow past the bowsman's ear. Or so he has an arrow drawn, and Gimli's like, "You're aiming too high," and he points the bow, like he uses his axe to like tip the Legolas's bow down. He shoots an arrow, and he shoots, and it's Peter Jackson's cameo, because he's a cameo in all three movies. Shoots him right in the chest. Oh, he like falls, and Gimli's like, "Oh," and then you see the ghosts go into the ships. So like you don't get that stuff, but that's the one thing that kind of cool, like, oh, what happened to Aragorn? They said no. Anyway, at a certain point, Gandalf, his staff gets broken by the Witch King.
Okay.
So if you're watching
It doesn't really matter.
it doesn't really matter, and you probably didn't even notice it was gone.
No.
But there's just things like that sprinkled here and there. But the biggest one is Saruman's death.
That would have been nice to know what happened.
Yeah, in hindsight, it's kind of weird that they didn't include that one.
That is.
Do you like? I'm just curious. Do you like the Gollum Smeagol flashback?
Oh yeah.
To start this movie off.
That is a starred thing, so I put stars next to like the awesome stuff that I want to make sure to bring up.
Okay.
Yeah, Smeagol's backstory. I loved it.
It's, I think, a fun way to start the movie cold open.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to connect to Frodo and his turning evilness. Also, Andy Serkis, who plays Gollum, you got to see his face.
Yeah, Gollum is the best thing in these movies. Like,
I do need to be the bearer of some bad news, though.
does he die?
Wait,
I saw that already.
Yeah, this doesn't make anyone excited, but they did announce a Lord of the Rings movie directed by Andy Serkis, and like no one's excited about this, but it's called The Hunt for Gollum, and no one knows why they chose that to be the next. But
why is there a next?
I don't know why, but they announced it, and collectively, the fan base was like, "Why?"
Yeah.
But, so, anyway. Plus, it's kind of gruesome, and he's turning into Gollum here. He closes his eyes. I think when his eyes turn big, it's a really cool transition.
So,
I'll stop.
I guess we'll start with the pros. So, yeah, everything about Smeagol, especially his conversations with himself, are just magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
Just the acting there, and then, like, specifically, his poisoning of Frodo against Sam is so well done. It's very careful. Like, you can see I mean, he's obviously insane, but there's this cunning mind there at work that, like, I feel like, especially in this movie, Andy Serkis is his name.
Yeah.
He so far outshines everyone else in this movie in terms of acting. It's kind of embarrassing.
And it's also
for a lot of the other people, because they're all of them, they're all kind of just these one-sided, no arc type characters. I suppose we can say Aragorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose we can say that he has an arc, but
He does, especially
the rest
Fellowship to here.
Yeah, but the rest of everyone doesn't at all, as far as I can tell. I mean, Pippin becomes less stupid, I guess, maybe.
Well, okay, I will say Gimli and Legolas,
they don't
move. They kind of overcome
kind of
their
pointless.
biases, which
In this movie, I felt like they were pretty pointless, honestly. They didn't do anything significant at all.
I would
They
say,
didn't.
you know what is frustrating in hindsight after Hobbit?
Having spent 4.5 hours watching this.
No, in Hobbit, they should have made Legolas just hate dwarfs. Like I hate dwarfs so much. And then if you go back to these, like, oh, he becomes best friends with Gimli.
Yeah.
And because Gimli, you're right, their arcs are the smallest. But I think Merry and Pippin have also...
Sure.
No, like, literally, both of them, they're forced to separate for the first time ever, whatever. But then they also both choose to pledge allegiance to someone. They're like, I want to help, let me do this.
Yeah, but Pippin's is stupid. Like, what?
Yeah,
Why?
but that's consistent at least.
Right.
It's consistent in all three
dumb.
movies.
I already said it in the first one of these. Like, if I were in charge of that, Pippin would have been gone way before this movie. Like, he's just the cause of all the bad stuff. Anyhow, but on the other side of the Hobbit thing, Frodo's basically a non-entity in this movie. Like, he doesn't grow, change anything. His only job is to moan and have, salt water sprayed in his eyes so he looks like he's tired or something.
He's there to suffer.
He does nothing. But Sam is magnificent.
Yes, Sam's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best
love
character.
Sam, with the exception of a line that we'll talk about.
No, just tell the audience now what the line is,
Okay.
so they hate you the whole time.
Great, you can hate me, whatever. So we've got near the end, Frodo, and Frodo's not consistently weak. which is the other thing that drives me nuts. Like, sometimes he's like, oh, I can't possibly go on. And then other times he's marching up the hill, and then he's, oh, you can, whatever. Okay, whatever. He is inconsistently weak. But then we get this just nauseating scene near the top of Mount Mordor when Frodo's having one of his weak spells and Sam's pepping him up or whatever the crap, and he has this horrific line that's probably the worst line ever written.
Oh my gosh.
As far as gagness. He's like talking about, I wish I could take the ring for you, and then he says, I can't carry it for you, but I can't even say it with a straight face. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. Whatever.
Deets, I just want you to know,
disgusting.
You're a bad person. You should feel bad.
Whatever.
Okay, all right. You know what? No, let's not.
He didn't even have to say it. He could have just.
You know what? Stop. No, because
we're
gonna. That line is so universal in so many ways in real life. Like, you have people you love, people you care about.
I get it.
Yeah, I know you get it, but
I don't say it to them.
You don't say it, but you do it.
Right. That's what he needed to do. I don't need his gaggy puke line. I can carry you.
Except for in the movie.
Picks him up. Just do it.
Oh my gosh. In the movie, it literally says, let me carry the ring for a little bit. Share the load. And then,
he does, which is what makes that line even stupider.
But that's...
Because he does carry the ring.
He's doing what's best for Frodo. Like, Frodo...
This is even after he already carried the ring. Why is this line in this movie? Because he already did it.
Because Frodo will never let him take the ring back.
But he did already.
But he was... he wasn't even conscious at the time.
It doesn't matter. He says, I can't carry it for you. That's not true. He already did.
At least it's not another line that you'd be fired if you didn't like. I'm not even going to tell you. We'll get to it because it's one of the great moments of all of cinema.
That was one of the great moments. Oh, I can't carry it.
It's a good moment.
False. Anyhow, okay, great. But there are some magnificent moments in this movie.
Okay.
So the beacon lighting was magnificent. It was way too long.
But the music.
But it was so great. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yes, I agree.
The beacons are lit. Gondor calls for aid.
Yeah.
And Rohan will answer.
Yeah, that moment was great. Like, when we don't know, is he gonna... Yeah. Is he not gonna...
Because the last movie...
Right.
Oh, man.
So good.
That is...
I agree.
Okay, good. Thor.
Okay, anyhow, Denethor, the steward of Gondor, just the power of... When he's talking to his... Faramir, and Faramir's like, you wish it was me that had died instead of Boromir, and he said, yes, that is what I wish. That is brutal.
Yeah.
And and then all the next 10 minutes after that are just devastatingly powerful, where it's juxtaposed with he's charging into basically suicide.
Yeah.
And juxtaposed with him eating stuff, and juxtaposed with the stupid stupid hobbit singing and all of that.
Yeah.
That was probably as close to perfect as this movie gets.
Yeah.
It was magnificent.
I love that moment. Yeah, because, there's definitely...
It was so brutal.
It's... Because you're right. That city was lost. It's like, well, why were you... defend our city, whatever. But Faramir, we all know the orcs took over. If they go back and even try, they're going to die. But because there's kind of a theme of loyalty in this movie,
right?
Because even Sam's so loyal to Frodo. He knows he didn't steal the bread, but he still leaves. Yeah, because that's what Frodo asked him to do. Basically, Faramir knows he's gonna die, but he's still loyal to at least his city or his father, Right. Which ties into the question I had last week directly. Why do we follow leaders just because they're leaders? Yeah. This is the best example of that. Why does he do that? Well, I think in this case,
like, he has to have been just completely crushed.
Yeah.
Like, completely emotionally destroyed by his father's answer.
Yeah.
And so, like, if my father doesn't care if I live or die, why should I care, kind of thing.
Right. And it's crazy how in a movie with the literal, like, embodiment of evil and orcs who are just, like, they look like they're evil.
Right.
You're like, I hate that guy, though.
Yeah.
That guy.
Well, like, I think he's the worst. Yeah, like, the one that I despised the most was not Sauron, and it wasn't Saruman, it was whatever his name was.
I know,
the Steward of Gondor.
Denethor.
He was such a good, just evil guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene was magnificent.
And, like, the cherries. Can you even eat a cherry tomato without thinking of that scene?
Yeah, I won't. Now that, I won't ever again. That was so good.
And the music. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, with the music thing, my wife and I started Peaky Blinders last night.
Yeah.
And it just, because the music in Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
It's annoying how, like, it's totally anachronistic and it takes you out every time the music comes on. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lord of the Rings is flawless in terms of how it's using its music. I didn't realize that until I was like, wow, what is wrong with this? Oh, it's not like Lord of the Rings. So
yeah,
there you go. That's my...
And I mentioned it to some degree earlier, but, like, it's crazy how other big franchises that obviously have music don't weaponize the music like Lord of the Rings do.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I said it earlier, but this is by far the best use of music as a weapon. Yeah, you said weaponize.
Yeah.
As a weapon, or as a powerful component of what the movie wants to do.
It was a popular criticism for a while for the Marvel movies. Like, how come we can't think of the themes in these movies we love? And also, there's kind of... the trend is kind of fading, but a lot of soundtracks kind of morphed into just kind of like a one note playing for a while, like an ethereal type of thing, which is good, but not as interesting as something like this, though. Anyway,
I agree.
There's a few moments the music really comes
the
into
specific one for me was the charge of the the riders.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the stupidest pep speech I've ever heard.
We're going to die.
Like, what is he doing? And they're like, death! Yay! And I'm like, that is the dumbest speech I've ever heard in my life. But the charge down and the music, that was awesome.
I wrote in my notes let me find it here. Oh, cinema was born during this scene?
Possibly. Yeah, that was a magnificent scene. It was amazing.
You can go see movies with a live orchestra.
Oh, okay.
And I would love to see, like, that moment with the live orchestra.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I wrote the Mordor speech by the king. I don't know what I wrote, what that was. It must have been near the end.
It's with Aragorn, probably. When he's like, the day will come where men's hearts will fail them. It is not this day.
Oh, yeah. That's the speech. That was a great speech.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Because they, essentially, it's the same idea as the last one. Like, we're here to die, but we're just trying to give Frodo more time.
Right. And compared to the stupid speech before the charge, that speech was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like they're facing essentially certain destruction.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way this little group of people is ever going to be victorious.
No.
But he succeeds in lifting them, strengthening them. We know hope that this is going to succeed.
Yeah.
But in order to save the rest of everyone else, we have to do it.
Yeah.
And
I just remembered there's another kind of, it's the other deleted scene that would probably be cool to see in the theatrical. It's the mouth of Sauron. In the book, there's a guy that comes out who's the mouth of Sauron. And in the movie, he's this kind of gross-looking guy who I think he can't see. He's got this cool mask over his face, but his mouth is like big and grotesque and things and dirty. And he comes, Aragorn and the main guys go to talk to him in front of the Black Gates, and he like holds up Frodo's mithril shirt, and said, "Know that your little one suffered greatly at the hands of my master," it's type of thing.
Yeah.
And then Aragorn like walks with his horse and cuts his head off and goes, "I do not believe it. I cannot believe it." And then it leads into that scene because basically it was.
I think it's better without that.
The last ditch effect, like, oh, the Frodo with the ring, we killed that guy, but Aragorn's like, we.
If that had happened in the movie, I think it would have been. Yeah, I'm actually glad they took that out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. That would have taken me out. He sees the shirt, he sees the thing, and he still goes back. Yeah, it's better without it, in my opinion.
It's a cool little moment, but ultimately it still works. Yeah. But the idea that Aragorn's holding on to, it doesn't matter what they say.
Right.
He has the hope of Frodo in there. Okay, keep going. Other pros.
Like the whole idea of the Men of the Mountain, I think, is really powerful. Like the cost of going back on your word.
Yeah.
And then the idea that honor can be restored. I really like that.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for their role in the battle, but I didn't care for a lot of the things that happen in the battle, and we can talk about that in a minute. But why they exist and how they find peace, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah.
Sam, I already mentioned, and his fight with the spider was, is really cool because
Shelob, once again, we said, not a spider.
Right.
A spider.
I imagine I'm going to make that mistake.
I'm just joking. It does not matter.
But Sam is awesome.
He is. And I love how
this is Sam's movie.
It is. He's like the MVP of the whole franchise,
which
kind
is
of.
funny because he's not. Anyhow.
He is the everyman. He's the best example of the everyman archetype.
Yeah, I agree.
He's just there to support Frodo, help Frodo, and then in the end, he just wants the girl, and it took going on this big adventure for him to get the courage to ask her out.
Which was cute.
I love Sam.
Yeah.
And also my wife's name is Sam. I love Sam.
And then the one line in all of the 6 of these movies that made me laugh was Gandalf and Pippin are at the door of the steward of Gondor, and he's like, "You probably shouldn't mention this, and if you don't, actually, in fact, it's better if you don't speak at all."
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And then I love the fact, or the moment where Eowyn kills the witch guy.
Witch King.
Witch King. Mm-hmm. It's Eowyn that does it.
Yeah.
I really liked that a lot.
Yeah. And like we said last episode, the nerd that goes, actually, it's technically... shut up. Eowyn killed him.
There you go. So those are my pros. So this movie, if I were to put it in a big perspective, has some, I think, 4 just absolutely marvelous moments and a whole lot of crap that I wish we would just edit out, and it's boring,
and we're gonna hear
make any sense.
Some of those because I can't even imagine. But
well, I've got a nice list here. So anyhow, but this movie I think has my favorite scenes in it.
Yeah,
but
it's incredible.
As a whole, I think this is a much weaker movie than The Two Towers was.
Okay. I have some just pros, besides the ones you've already mentioned, because there are some fantastic moments. I think the biggest other pro is, at the end, Frodo not throwing the ring in. I think...
You thought that was a pro?
Oh, yeah. That's
one of my biggest cons.
Oh, my gosh. That's, like, what makes the movie just...
Why?
Elevate. All right, because you... The whole entire time, get to the Mount Doom, destroy the ring... What's the one thing you would never see coming? Frodo choosing to keep the ring.
It's not seeded at all.
I think it is, especially with... That. I disagree strongly. I think everything we know about the ring suggests it's going to do everything to survive, but also that the ring bearer will not think clearly. I think Frodo is clearly putting poison enough...
But even I disagree.
All right.
Even in the scenes leading up to him standing there, he's still focused on that mission of getting the ring into the fire.
And then, but it's like, here it is. There's just one more thing you have to do. It's the easiest thing to do, and that's, and like think of Bilbo with the ring in the Fellowship, how like he literally has that evil jump scare face.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah,
That was awesome, actually.
Gollum will go do. He's had the ring for 500 years. He's going to do anything to keep the ring.
Right. I just didn't feel like that.
And I
thought
guess
it was just a cheap way to extend the drama.
I think it's a great example of dramatic action because, like, and even if it don't feel like it was seated properly, I think it's what makes that moment entirely interesting.
But it didn't. I don't feel like that moment required Frodo to be like, "No, it's mine."
The ring
like
is mine.
You could have had that everything that happened there just with Gollum trying to prevent the ring's destruction.
Yeah.
I felt like it. Honestly, I felt like it weakened Frodo's character a great deal because for however long it's been since he left the Shire, he's been so strong. Like to carry that corrupts, other people just by looking at it.
Yeah.
For him to have been so strong, so dedicated all the way up until that moment, and then to rob him of that moment, I think it kind of hurt me. Not that I actually cared that much, but I felt like it was taking something away from Frodo's strength and his sacrifice to have him at the very last second be like, no, I give up. I've been completely corrupted. I did not like it at all, but you can like it.
I really do like it, but
that's okay.
That's funny.
We have historically disagreed on a few things.
Okay, other pros. I guess to even continue, like when my wife, she saw these growing up, but she forgot everything. So when we watched them, it was like watching them for the first time, which is exciting. She did not know Gandalf was coming back, type of stuff. So at the end, we like forget Gollum just fell into that pit. I think the movie does a good thing, kind of like distracting you. Right. But when he appears, I remember she was just yelling like, "No, like Gollum!" Like because it's. Like, what I mean by dramatic action is you can't just win and then win and then win.
Right.
You need something to counteract that. In fact, when we get to our next franchise, every sequence is a good example of this. But like, oh, there's the door to Mount Doom. Uh-oh, Gollum's here. Here's Frodo. Uh-oh. He doesn't want to throw it away anymore. Yeah. There's a whole army of bad guys fighting. We just have to survive. But like the Gollum and Frodo stuff just builds to this moment where it's like, wow, like we're just there, and an edge of your seat in a way. They at one point wanted Aragorn to fight Sauron in this battle, but they replaced it with the troll instead. The rules in the book with Sauron of the Ring are different than the rules established in the movie. I don't know all the ins and outs, but they're like, oh, actually, we can't do that. Frodo needs his moment in the mountain, and we've already established Sauron can't come back without the ring. All I know is the book has different Sauron rules, but they replaced Sauron with a troll. Everyone fights one-on-one with that troll there at the end. Anyway, it's just a thing to now you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I drop my defense for the Eagles?
You should drop it.
You're not wrong.
No, you should drop it. Just
the Eagles doing their thing multiple times in Hobbit ruins this. My argument for this moment is they don't like win the war. They're not like a Deus Ex Machina machine here.
No.
They just fight off the Nazgul.
Right.
That's fine. And then they just pick up Frodo and Sam. However, I looked it up. This is what Google says. In The Lord of the Rings, the eagles, specifically the great eagles, represent divine intervention and a connection to higher realms. They are powerful messengers and observers, often acting as a bridge between the mortal world and the Valar, which are
between we can't figure out how to save them.
Godlike beings. They're also a symbol of hope and a reminder that even in the darkest times, assistance from beyond is possible.
Great.
Some religious connection. But in this movie, it's exciting that they appear. But they don't like battle the five armies. They just kill all the bad guys in the end, I guess.
I guess.
In here, they just pick up Frodo and Sam.
Fair.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me.
At this point, the Eagles are stupid. Not as stupid as Pippin, but...
I compared Legolas killing the elephant to Luke Skywalker taking down the AT-AT.
Yeah, that's actually fair. I kind of thought of that, actually.
I just have a couple lines that I liked.
They're probably on my negatives, but...
The one line before the big battle starts, courage is the best defense you have now. I think that's kind of nice.
That is.
When Elrond gives the sword to Aragorn, he's like, become who you were born to be.
Yep.
I think it's really cool.
That's one of my philosophy ones is that line.
And I think, like,
great line.
In the book, Aragorn gets the sword way, way, way back in Rivendell. It's way more powerful here.
Yes.
I just have a couple more lines at this point, but like...
You're 2 for 2 so far. So.
I forget, is it Merry or Pippin? I think it's Merry when he's talking to... what's her name? Éowyn? When he's talking to Éowyn. I know I can't save Middle-earth. I just want to help my friends. Mm-hmm. And we've talked
that's a scene.
So much about that with these movies.
Which is true, and I love that scene.
Yeah.
I really... it's kind of a central component of how I live my life, honestly.
Yeah. So, it's one of the philosophies of this podcast, I feel like. It's become...
Apparently.
Help... do what you can in your spheres.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I said, Sam versus Shelob, you will not touch him again. So
that
good.
Is a good line.
And then I think it's kind of nice, depending on what you believe, but like when Gandalf is talking to Pippin about death, and he's like, death is just another path, one we all must take. But the idea of like, everyone dies.
Yeah.
Everyone dies. And it's just a thing, whether you believe in an afterlife or not, it's
coming for all of us.
Yeah, sure. We don't need to be scared about death. And then, of course, the moment that I'm glad you didn't mention yet, so far as pro or cons, but like, I think the whole movie builds to that moment, and it truly affects me a lot, is when Aragorn tells the hobbits, you bow to no one.
Yeah. That's actually one of my pros.
Okay, that makes me happy, because...
That was a great...
That is a great moment. And, like, they play the Shire thing. It's just...
Yeah, I agree.
That's... It makes me happy at least that line didn't bother you.
Like, I had a bunch of good things. It was up in the corner. I missed that. I didn't read it. But that was a great moment.
Yeah.
That is the moment right after that the movie should have stopped.
We'll get to the multiple endings. We'll get to the multiple endings, believe it or not.
45-minute long goodbye to this person and goodbye to that person and goodbye to this other person. See, so we could have cut it right there. It would have been 2 hours, 10 minutes. I probably wouldn't have had much issue with it.
You're not all the way wrong.
I'm not.
I will come back to that, but like similar to what we said last week with the Battle of Helm's Deep, it's impossible not just to be impressed with the scale of this thing. I know you don't love the big battle, but like we're seeing all these orcs go to the city until like we're seeing like the city being destroyed. These elephants that are like just kind of just like the sheer scope and audacity of this thing to be as big as it is.
Right.
What's another movie that even comes close to being like this?
I don't know.
I mean, it might seem
like Gandhi.
That's in the 80s though. What's like a movie since
recently?
This movie?
Like
the last 25 years, I mean. I would say like even Endgame that we've watched, it's big, but I don't think it feels as
right.
And you should know this is by all accounts technically an epic genre.
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
The amount of extras, the amount of like epic wide shots, like the scope and scale of it makes this an epic. Yeah. I would maybe say Avatar is in scale somewhat close, but maybe. I don't know if this has been surpassed, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, possible. But I think to transition into the cons, I think that Martin Harris on a previous episode mentioned the idea of power creep. And I feel like the reason why I disliked this, hour and a half long battle scene in this movie so much is that we had the Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers, which was as close to probably a perfect massive battle filming as we're probably ever going to get.
Yeah.
This one felt like, okay, we have to do it bigger, we have to do it better.
Yeah.
And so probably my biggest con for this movie is how they did this. So we start with the orcs versus the people in
Minas Tirith.
Mm-hmm. Great. And the hopelessness, and they captured that really well. And then these guys show up and turn the tide, and we have is this the one where they ride down? And
yeah.
Okay, great. And then
Ride of the Rohirrim.
Ride of the Rohirrim, right. Oh, look, the battle's tide has turned.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Here comes the elephant people. Oh, that sucks. And now the tide is turning back the other way. And now the bad guys are going to... Oh, look. Here comes the mountain men people. Oh, and then we turn the ghosts. Oh, look. Here come the... What are they called? The bad Dementor guys?
Oh, yeah. The ring.
Oh, here they come. Oh, look. Here come... No. That's trash. Everything about that battle is... Everything that was great about the Battle of Helm's Deep is not great here. In my opinion.
Both are good.
I disagree strongly.
You're wrong.
Great. That's okay. The scope of it is bigger, but the lameness of it is also bigger. It's way bigger. And then, like, Gandalf, I think I've rarely changed my mind so much about a character than I have about Gandalf.
Huh.
Because I used to think Gandalf was awesome. Like, as a kid, watching the Hobbit cartoon that we talked about, I used to think he was this great, awesome character and whatever. I think he's pointless. At this point, I think... Gandalf has no function. He does nothing useful at all in any of these movies other than the one moment that he's with his famous line, "You shall not." That's basically all he does in all three of these movies. Other than that,
he's kind of orchestrating the...
Sure.
This does reflect...
He's got these phenomenal cosmic powers that he does nothing with.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Man, that's why maybe the Hobbits. We gotta reevaluate the Hobbits and how powerful we see. I'm just joking. Anyway. Because this is...
So that was my main complaint with this.
Is
how much less awesome this epic battle was than Helm's Deep.
But it is. There's some moments in there.
Sure. Yeah. I don't disagree, but I would say the Helm's Deep, the whole thing is...
It's hard to argue against Helm's Deep,
there's no point in that battle that I'm like, okay,
we
can just skip this.
Well, is it because Helm's Deep is, like, tighter? Like, literally it's smaller? And,
well, maybe.
And Minas Tirith is this ginormous
but there's
city.
Not these stupid... artificial, oh, we're gonna lose, oh wait, no we're not, oh yes we are, oh no we're not, oh yes we are, kind of crap. It's just like the fall of Helm's Deep wasn't the climax. Well, no, the fall of Minas Tirith wasn't the climax.
That's a good point.
It wasn't the focal point. It was just this escalation of, oh yeah, well I'm bringing in these guys, oh yeah. That just kind of, like, who cares?
That's fair.
Anyhow.
It's just kind of like, what's his face? Gondor themselves, like, they're like, why aren't we getting ready for this big battle?
Right.
But that's part of what Gandalf was, he literally says that, like, there's an army here, which he has done nothing to prepare or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all a metaphor for,
for us. We see the evil, we do nothing.
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
This movie's been with me for a long time.
Yeah.
Even the video game, where the actors even came to voice the video game, and movie tie-in video games weren't like a bad thing at that point. Where it's like, let's play Return of the King and live it. Type let's play Lord of the Rings in the backyard. All of these things.
Yeah. Cool. So that was my main issues. The random powerful beings that don't actually do anything, like the heroine. Like, the whole time we feel like she's this powerful elf, like the elf love of whatever his name is.
Aragorn.
Gorn.
Yeah, Aragorn.
Does nothing. Gandalf does nothing. But the biggest was the battle. But there are some other things that I didn't like. We already kind of touched on it. Like, why did they drag the end of this out for so long?
That is a pretty big complaint. Actually, I'll get into it with my
Here we are.
lens.
Let's do
I'm
it.
bringing post-structuralism today.
Nice.
There's a kind of famous interaction. I forget who tells this story. I think it's Elijah Wood who plays Frodo. He said Jack Nicholson came up to him. He's like, it was really good, but all those endings, I just left the theater, or something like that. Okay, so, my point is, that's been a thing that has been around. But you also have to end 9 hours worth of stuff, and, it's like finishing a book. You have to say goodbye to all these ideas. Okay.
I thought that him kneeling to the hobbits was a perfect goodbye.
You could probably end it right there.
That would have been
no
the
questions
perfect
asked.
ending.
I know. It's just nice to see Sam getting a family, and he's holding his real life daughter, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is kind of fun. He's the only one out of most of the cast, early 20s. He was like the only one that had like a family, like the other hobbits and even Legolas. Like, they've talked many times about like being like a family as a cast and stuff. And the guy who played Sam, he was a little bit older, had a wife and kids, which wasn't what most of them were like. But it's also the ending with Frodo sailing. How could Frodo possibly live a normal life after that? He can't. He has to sail to the undying land.
Which is what?
Where the elves go. Like, this is the ending of... This is the fourth age in Middle-earth, meaning magic is literally leaving. The elves are literally leaving. Gandalf is leaving. It's the time for men to basically reign. I mean, that's all superfluous. Doesn't really matter, but seeing how Frodo could function as a human being, that's, also something that gets addressed. He can't function is the answer. Anyway, so a couple episodes ago, we talked about structuralism. So I thought maybe if we brought in some post-structuralism into
Let's do it.
So just to recap, structuralism is our collective understanding of how stories work. Even if you don't recognize it, there are words that you can label all our different types of heroes. The reluctant hero, the archetypes, the everyman, like we already said. So post-structuralism kind of looks how something's structured, a movie, and criticizes that, identifies that. So, for example, the endings, you could argue, and you already have, a collapse of meaning here. Yeah. There's so many endings, the meaning loses it. Right. For people like you, not for people like me who
who blindly appreciate,
who watches an extra 40 minutes just because. Each ending offers a type of closure. Like you said, the true ending for you, Aragorn's coronation. Frodo leaves Sam's family, but post-structuralism could say the repetition of the ending ironically undercuts the sense of a true ending, which is what you're saying. I'm just putting a lens on it. Yeah. Post-structuralism would argue that this reveals narrative closure as a construct, a comforting illusion that cannot fully contain the sprawling emotional excess of the story. Okay. The point is, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, when it goes on and on and on, as an audience, you're like, this is going on, and kind of ruining my enjoyment of the whole thing. Yes. You could say. If that's you, listener, you're kind of using a post-structuralist idea on that. Cool. I have other ideas of post-structuralism. Nice. So, this movie, All Lord of the Rings, has a very strong sense of good and evil. In fact, to quote the epic rap battle of history between George R.R. Martin and J.R.R. Tolkien, the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, he says, the good guys survive and the bad guys die. I could tell what would happen by page in age 5. Which is kind of a fun line. Yeah. Kind of how I think you were looking at this. Yeah. And then Tolkien would respond, it's like, it's fantasy. It's meant to be unrealistic, whatever. But this movie, you could say, has a clear binary of good and evil. But yet, at the end, Frodo, the goodest good guy, you could say, chooses not to throw the ring in.
Which is why that doesn't work for me.
Right. And so that's maybe like that concept, that binary illusion is being tampered with. You could argue since Gollum is responsible for the ring to go in at the end, is he like the goodness of the ring being destroyed there at the end?
Maybe.
I mean, I'm trying here.
Here.
I know. I think in the book, once again, have not read them, but I've heard a lot of talk about them.
I was trying to remember how that seemed.
I think Frodo doesn't push him in. He's just dancing so much, he trips and falls. I think that's what happens in the book. But I love how he's just so blind by his love. He's just like kissing it in the air, falling to his death.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Let's see here. What else do I have prepared for you? So like, you could argue Gollum is the hero if he's the one that like tumbles the ring. Yeah. This idea of king versus servant. Aragorn's kingship is portrayed as rightful and natural. And this is kind of what you were talking about already. The post-structuralist lens is questioning, like, wait, why should people trust Aragorn? Because of his birthright?
Yeah.
What gives him any reason? Besides the fact that he's proven himself in battle and he can bring people, like, motivation and stuff.
I would say in Aragorn's case, by the end, there are multiple good reasons to follow him as a leader.
Yeah.
Like, he earns it. Whereas the steward or Saruman or Sauron, they're just blindly being followed. So.
Yeah, I guess that's part of like the bad guys thing. It's like, look, we got the numbers,
right?
And we're winning because of the number of orcs,
right?
And that's it. But like the king versus servant thing, post-structuralism would question like the legitimacy the movie never questions of, should we let this guy be king?
Yeah. But
you could argue Sam shows more moral strength than most of the nobles in the movie.
I agree.
Sam could be king as far as the movie is concerned. Because I saw some stuff, it was like questioning, are the orcs really bad? Do we even question the morality of the orcs? I'm like, the orcs are pretty bad, okay? I was like, all right, we could calm down with some of these things. This one might tickle your fancy. The ring as a symbol of power, corruption, desire, and addiction, but these meanings shift based on the context of the character. It tempts and defines Frodo, and yet is also the reason Gollum's destruction. So it's not a stable signifier. The meaning is contingent. So
the signifier. I had forgotten about the signifier.
The
signifier and the signified.
Can you? Because that's all I have. What does that mean? I guess. Can you?
It's just I think it ties back to the semiotics that you talked about. I think last 2 weeks ago for this episode. Just the idea that language is inadequate to capture the meaning of a thing. So that's the signifier is always going to come up short of the signified.
Huh.
And that's actually reminded me of another thing that I wanted, like a con of this. I don't like, what is the ring's impact on Frodo? Like, what is the ring offering Frodo? We never really get that at all.
That's why I said I had to look it up.
And so
what does the ring do?
So that's why his thing at the end rang so false to me. Wow, the ring is mine. Why? So
if we had a scene with Frodo talking to Sam just about like, the ring makes me feel unstoppable.
Something
like that.
The signified in this case is whatever that thing is. What is it offering to Boromir? What did it offer to whatever?
Yeah.
The language of the film, the language of the language is insufficient to capture that. And so we're left with the sense that the only way for us to understand the power of the ring is for us personally to be attracted to it or called by it. And so the post-structuralism is very interested in the inadequacy of the representation of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like I love my wife completely. Do I have the language to be able to adequately convey that to anyone? No. And I can't even adequately convey that to her.
Yeah.
How much she means to me and how important she is to me. There's no language to convey that. And so part of post-structuralism is recognizing that, like, we can't signify completely. And so any signification by default is inadequate or false, I think is what they would say. So
interesting.
Yeah. So the true power of the ring is not articulatable.
Yeah.
It's not conveyable. It's not
even really attempted.
Understandable. Right. And so
that's what that would be saying.
Right. So they opt out in this movie. They just,
I think, kind of wisely.
Wisely.
In a way, don't get bogged down on rules.
Right.
For this one.
But at least for me, I'm left with this sense that, like,
yeah.
Okay, why?
So I feel like this small conversation we've just had in the last however minutes, you use, maybe unknowingly, post-structuralism in a lot of your analysis for films. Because it's not just breaking down archetypes and structure, it's more like the movie and the rules of the movie. Right. And, like, because you could even branch out and say, with post-structuralism, this is not just Tolkien or Peter Jackson, it's the company that made it. It's, who's the author here? Well, maybe no one. It's a Maj Podge type of thing.
Yeah.
I have one last thing that I think still applies. Foucault, about power, language, and identity. I just was how language constructs identity is what. So this is, you might get a tickle this. I wasn't going to say this, but, maybe it will be fun since you know Foucault more than I knew. Foucault. The language of prophecy and kingship, meaning, like, you bow to no one, naturalizes Aragorn's rise, making political power seem like destiny. And Foucault would ask, who benefits from this discourse? Would it be Aragorn? Or
from what discourse?
I suppose him telling the hobbits, you bow to no one.
Oh, right. Who benefits from that?
I guess. That's...
Yeah, I would say he does, because he's seen as...
Yeah. The
benevolent dictator or whatever.
But that's taking away from, we love Aragorn for who he is.
Right. Which is why post-structuralism it's kind of hard to continue loving literature.
Yeah.
If you embrace post-structuralism, because you tear everything apart. And so that's why, as you mentioned, I have a core piece of how I interact with the world is post-structural.
Yeah.
But it's got to be balanced with other stuff. Otherwise, you just end up hating everything.
I wonder, though, as someone who has a degree in film studies, how important it is to, I guess, be metacognitively aware of post-structuralism. Like, because you could arguably tear down any movie if you get too deep into it.
If you're 100% post-structuralist critic, you won't love anything.
Yeah. Because I realized why I wasn't going to bring this up. It's because its other example, using Foucault, is from technically Two Towers, when Sam says his speech about the great stories.
Right.
So, for example, it's like, if you tell the audience stories like this matter, it could, like, reinforce the mythic discourse that privileges certain kinds of suffering and heroism while marginalizing others.
Right.
But it's kind of like self-rewarding. It's
self-aggrandizing.
Which I think was what you were saying last episode.
Yeah.
It just feels cheap because that moment is so good to me. Yeah, stories do matter. And I like stories where heroes do good things. Yeah. But the post-structuralists would say, it's just bragging about itself.
Right. Yeah. Which is why I didn't like it. Yeah, so that part of post-structuralism, I think, is pretty valuable. And we've seen...
Wait, which part specifically?
The untold, like, who gets to tell the history kind of idea. We've seen a lot of pushback over the last, 30, 40 years on that. Like, the attempt to reclaim or lionize the untold stories. Like the cliche is the history is told by the victor, but this Foucault and others are much richer and deeper than that. So Like in my doctoral work, we had people that were like going and finding like letters written just by some, schmo to some other schmo. This series of back and forth letters is now in a post-structural academic sense, that is being held up as equivalent to like Aquinas's or Augustine's letters to himself, like his journal stuff. And so part of what makes post-structuralism not my favorite is that sense that all texts are equal. They all represent some vantage point or some important thing, and by saying Shakespeare is greater than this schmo's letters to some other schmo, we're doing some damage. I disagree with that. I think that there are very clearly differences not only in kind but in value in our various literatures. So like the Two Towers, if we take that and put it against whatever the worst Star Wars one was, are those equivalent films? No, they're not equivalent.
Almost came out the same year though. If you say Attack of the Clones is the worst.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. Or the worst is the Two Towers equivalent to Iron Man, which is one of my least favorite of the Marvels? No. There's a lot more depth, a lot more power to the Two Towers than there was to the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, or whatever. And so I find value in some post-structuralist tools, but I would not recommend, if you're looking for a way to interact with literature at a powerful level, I would not recommend post-structuralism.
I know.
Because you end up hating everything.
I am tempting to implement it in my film studies class next year, though.
Just give him a taste.
Yeah. Just like, hey, what about, just the little things here and there.
Because there is, like I said, there's a lot of valuable tools, but I don't think it's valuable as the only way to view literature. So that's my little anti-post-structuralist.
Before you get to philosophy, I have a question about a specific thing that used to bother me, but I think this is one of the first times it didn't bother me in this movie. How, like, in this big battle, Pippin's like, Gandalf, he's gonna burn Faramir alive. But it's like, there's a big army attacking. Like, why does Gandalf leave everything to go save Faramir?
Because he's not doing anything anyway, so he might as well go save Faramir.
It kind of doesn't make sense, but I think I guess story-wise, maybe Gandalf recognizes the need to have Faramir's lineage alive. But I was kind of looking at it this time, like, how important it is to preserve family. Or just, like... Because, like, Faramir's the last of his family, and I think it doesn't make sense story-wise, but I think the idea of, hey, no matter what, we need to make sure a lineage survives is important. It's kind of cool. Like,
I mean, like, not that the steward is really important after his initial things that he does, but it does just kind of really solidify him as, I don't know why when the evil is personal, it seems more evil. Right? And so
that's a good point.
Of all of these evil people in all of these Hobbit movies, he seems to be the most evil one.
Exactly.
Which is, if we think about it in terms of scope, that's ridiculous. Because all he really does at all is try to burn his son. And we've got, on the other hand, Sauron that is literally trying to destroy everything.
His one character trait is being evil.
Somehow is less evil because it's less personal. Which is an interesting kind of reinforcement of the idea of the other. Because it's so personal, that's way more evil than this much bigger, more impactful evil. We have this bias, the othering of humanity. So
also could be good writing advice too if you're trying to write a villain.
Make it personally.
Make it personal, If you're, that's why in superhero movies, like, I have to save the world, the universe.
Nobody cares.
It's hard to care. That's why I liked in the most recent Thunderbolts Marvel movie. It's not like world-ending save. It's like, we gotta help this one guy out. That's what it boils down to.
Cool.
Which I think is really cool. Anyway.
So philosophically, I picked out 2 quotes. So we have this great quote that I don't remember who says it to. I can't remember any of their names. The king guy.
Theoden?
No.
Aragorn?
Aragorn.
Okay, you couldn't remember Aragorn. He's I'm main sorry. Guy.
It's not. I'm not doing it on purpose.
I know.
There's just so many names.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so somebody says to him, put aside the ranger. Who was it that said that? Put aside the ranger.
I think it's...
Become who you were born to be.
That was Elrond.
Okay. That concept, I think, is really amazing. We, especially now that we don't have to struggle.
Yeah.
As Americans, we get so caught up in, I'm going to call it the ranger. This is really important that I get these likes, or this is really important that I, earned this new truck. That we kind of are burying who we really are. And so part of the process, I think, of becoming able to other people is stripping away all of this stuff that doesn't matter. The rangerness. Is it cool to be a ranger? Sure.
Yeah.
Is it fun? I guess so. There's a lot of glory. There's a lot of, freedom. There's a lot of not responsibility. Seems to be what drew him to that. But ultimately, that's not valuable to him. His rangerness was ultimately significantly less valuable than him becoming who he was born to be. That said, I don't necessarily believe in fate, but as we've talked about, I do believe that we have these abilities, talents, whatever that we can use in our sphere. And so one of the dangers of living in the society that we live in, and I know it's chic to complain about how terrible everything is now and the price is going up and whatever, but one of the dangers of that is this: our true selves are buried.
Yeah.
Under this sense that we need the toys, we need the entertainment, we need the whatever. So I loved that line.
I think a couple weeks ago you were saying there wasn't an arc with just when we were watching Fellowship.
Yeah.
But watching these 2 movies, looking at Aragorn specifically, it's like his arc is he needs to be king. He's just playing around in the woods as Strider. And anyway, I think that's really cool. And I think no matter who you are, you're destined for greatness.
Yeah.
And even if that doesn't mean you're gonna be wealthy or the most important person ever, but if you're a father or a parent
within your sphere,
exactly, you are destined for greatness no matter who you are or what you have or not have, basically.
I 100% agree with that.
And just trying to make the connections that you're saying. Yeah, are you gonna be a ranger having fun in the woods over there? We're going to take up the mantle of being the kingship or queenship of.
Yeah, I mean, to put a specific example, I hear all the time people say, I'm not going to have kids, because it's hard, because it
is hard.
It takes my freedom or whatever. I mean, I think that's really an interesting real world example of I want to be the ranger. I want to be out. I don't want to be tied down to, this little screaming thing and whatever. But the irony of that is at the end, that's not what's valuable at all.
Yeah.
So what that you traveled the world? It doesn't matter. You had a great run of it, but you're going to die. What is that line? It's a great line from Inception. You're going to die bitter and alone, filled with regrets. Dang it, why can't I remember that?
I kind of know what you're talking about.
It's a great line.
The one guy says at the beginning.
Anyhow, so this movie is suggesting that we need to put aside the ranger and become so I guess I would encourage us.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say arguably that's what the hobbits do in this movie.
Yeah.
They are
put aside the Shire.
Yeah.
And become
Yeah.
And
once again, Gimli and Legolas, not as much, I guess.
Yeah.
But everyone else.
No, I guess. They don't do anything.
I told you, though, that the rest of the characters, for the most part.
Yeah. And then another really awesome, probably top 5 favorite from this series for me is Sam and Frodo and Gollum are first arriving at Mordor. They're on top of this hill. They see just basically infinity of guys marching in, whatever, and Frodo's like, there's no way. Like we can't. I'm done. We can't beat this. We can't overcome it.
Yeah.
And Sam gives one of his little pep talks, and part of his pep talk is, let's just make it down the hill for starters.
Yeah.
And I think I know for a fact in my life there have been moments where I'm looking, metaphorically at Mordor.
Yeah.
I know what I need to do, but I don't see any way that is ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know that everyone listening has those moments. And if you haven't, guess what? They're coming. And so I think Sam's guidance here is absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
We don't have to, get to the fires right this second.
Yeah.
We just have to get down the hill for starters. And so in those moments in life when it looks like it's all imploding, there's no hope, there's no whatever, maybe we just have to lower the focus, to change the scope from I have to, graduate college, I have to find it.
Yeah.
No, maybe we just have to get this one sentence written.
Yeah.
And my students will recognize that advice. So don't look at the 10-page paper.
Yeah.
Just look at let's come up with our claims.
Yeah.
Let's start here at this, what we can do. And if we get down the hill for starters, we're down the hill and we're closer. And if we just keep focusing on, okay, what's the next step? Eventually we get to the fires of Mordor and we can accomplish our mission. So I think that is a really crucial thing that separates people who become wildly successful in their spheres from the people who don't. The ability to just get down the hill for starters. So there you go.
I love that.
Yeah,
It's nice. I don't think I even picked up on that line even, but I like that a lot.
line. So
Get that
That's all
tattooed
I
on
got.
my back.
let's just get down the hill for starters. Yeah, it's a great line. So
No, yeah, I'm just
on the whole, would I ever watch any of these 6 movies again? No, I would not. Are there valuable things in it? Yes, there are. Are they worth watching once? These last 3, I would say yes. They are worth watching at least once. There's enough beauty and power and majesty and enough insight into the human condition. They're definitely valuable. If there was like a 1.5 hour edit or a 2 hour edit,
no,
of these
you
movies,
wouldn't want to watch
I would
these.
I would.
I don't think so.
I would.
I don't think so.
Well, anyhow, so this movie I would give 3 stars.
3?
Out of 5. I think it is the weakest of the 3.
I know that there are people who say Fellowship is their favorite.
Is that the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say 2 Towers.
I think
is
2 Hours
my
is
favorite.
my favorite. I still like this one a whole lot though. But it's kind of all or nothing to some degree. Like here are all of them.
Yeah.
It's one big thing.
Yeah, I agree. So these are not sequels to follow my argument.
I mean,
before.
I think
They're a continuation
that
of the story.
argument is silly, but
They're not. This is a whole,
I
like
think-
you just said it. You don't
oh, dang it.
you don't just
Just walked
take
in.
one piece of the Fellowship of the Rings, and they don't stand alone. They're all necessary for all of the other pieces. So they are not sequels.
Okay. I did look up something to try to maybe explain Frodo's not giving up the ring.
Okay.
It's probably connected to psychoanalytic lens here because it
Very
talks
nice.
about unconscious desires, I suppose. Let's see. Gollum externalizes Frodo's repression, so how Gollum acts on the outside is how Frodo feels on the inside.
Okay.
You can maybe say, let's see, there's a funny word here that says
We don't see any of that.
Lacanian object petite, an object of desire that can never truly satisfy is what it means. Okay, so the ring, if
So
it's
Lacan is a neo-Freudian. He's like the
neo-Freudian, he's the
like
new Freudian.
he followed up Freud.
Oh, I know Lacan.
He's
I don't know.
the mirror stage guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I know that guy. Okay, so if the ring is an object of desire that can never truly satisfy, this says Frodo's ultimate inability to part with the ring at Mount Doom underscores the subconscious hold it has over him, despite his conscious rejection.
Yeah.
So it's his subconscious that can't allow him.
Wants it, yeah.
Yeah, is that? I mean, that's something.
I mean, it is. Like, I understand it, but
Oh, yeah.
the movie failed to
Too.
create that tension in him, I
that's
think.
fair. That's fair.
So.
Anyway, I think these movies good. But it's been with me for a while now, though, you know.
Yeah.
I should read the books. I've only read Hobbit.
Sure.
Andy Serkis, who does Gollum, he's done the audiobooks.
Oh, really?
Other people have too, obviously, but he can do the Gollum voice when it gets to those parts.
Like no other, I imagine.
We also didn't even really talk in any of these three movies how he was basically the first. Jar Jar Binks is the first character fully CGI that was like a character. But Jar Jar Binks, he doesn't look human in the face type of thing.
Right.
But this movie, like Andy Serkis, he auditioned to be just the voice of Gollum, but Peter Jackson talked about he loved his facial expressions so much. It's like, we got to put those in there. That's like part of this performance. So they like kind of spearheaded the technology to motion capture for the face, and it's different than what we think, because we're used to like the black dots and the camera. That wasn't quite there yet. They, I think, mostly used it as a reference, even though there are things that are motion captured, like his body, him doing things in like a skin tight suit that they replaced with the Gollum body in the movie. But I think the technology wasn't where it would be in a few years, but they still used his face and his performance. It all came together, but it was kind of the first time.
That's cool.
Which is cool.
You know what? What's the upcoming thing called? Is it The Story of Gollum?
Oh, it's like something like The Hunt for Gollum or something. I don't know.
I might be interested in a backstory. I would maybe watch that.
It's
just like I would watch a Drax.
Oh, yeah, from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Watch a Drax backstory.
That would be funny. What's funny is there was a video game, like a Gollum video game that came out that everyone said was awful. But I don't know. I guess there's something about Gollum that is
powerful.
He is arguably one of the most interesting characters in all of them.
I think he is the most.
Yeah. So then there's reasons, but it's all like this big canvas of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know, that fantasy pays tribute to this day, or even like counter, like just uses, like if you read the Mistborn books, there are things in that series that plays on what you expect, you know?
I think there aren't fantasy novels that don't either directly or indirectly interact with Tolkien. So.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings, I love this. Nice. Hobbit, see, can you imagine ending on Battle of the Five Armies?
I think, like I said at the start, I think I would have enjoyed these three much more.
That's fair. In hindsight, we didn't know we were going to be watching two movies in one weekend.
That's true. But, I mean, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy we did them. You were so adamant about never doing Lord of the Rings.
I was. And I'm like...
And now you're... Has it shifted at all since when you...
As a film as a whole, no. I think what has changed for me is my appreciation of certain aspects or components of it that I think are at their peak. Like the battles of Helm's Deep, I don't think that there has ever been a better battle scene filmed than that sequence. So what has changed for me is not the general appreciation, but the appreciation of specific things like Gollum, the Battle of Helm's Deep, some of the beacon lighting scene was emotionally just amazingly powerful. So I am closer, yes, but not the way you wanted me to be, I guess.
Our only hope, I think, is if your youngest child years from now is like, Dad, let's watch Lord of the Rings.
Well, I tried to watch the first one with my wife.
Yeah.
And she lasted about 15 minutes, and then she's like, I'm not. So maybe it's, genetic. Maybe I've poisoned my people. I don't know. But anyhow.
Dietz, so you get a Dietz choice.
I do. So I wanted to have you watch a 3-hour film that I feel like needs 3 hours. So I was going to have you watch The Green Mile. But... between when I have watched The Green Mile and now, Disney sued VidAngel, and so The Green Mile is no longer available edited. And having read The Green Mile, I know there are things that I personally don't want to watch in The Green Mile, the movie. So we're not going to watch The Green Mile, but I think The Green Mile is a good example of a 3-hour-long film that needs all of its time. And it doesn't feel like 3 hours.
Okay, you know what? I don't think... Okay, these movies kind of deserve to be 3 hours with all this stuff in them. You know, the movie that
We're never going to agree on that, but go ahead.
You just don't like long movies, it sounds like. That's
true.
What it sounds like.
I was going to give you that one. I was also going to give you, if that one didn't work, The Shawshank Redemption. Also, I feel like needs to be 3 hours.
Yeah, I've seen Shawshank.
Oh, you have? Okay. Well, so there are movies that I feel like the 3 hours are necessary. The Godfather needs to be 3 hours. These movies, I do not feel like any of the 6 of them needed to be 3 hours.
Yeah,
honestly. So, but anyhow, so we're not going to do that. So instead, as a transition, kind of from the fantasy-ness of silly whatever fightingness into our next series, which also has some silly.
It does.
Have we?
Wait, we haven't. We could say right now what it is.
So the next series we're going to do is we're going to do Indiana Jones next.
Yeah.
Which has a lot of things that I complained about in these movies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of silly crap that happens in the Indiana Jones stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see how I react to it, because I watched Raiders probably more than any movie ever as a kid. And so Raiders of the Lost Ark is for me what a lot of the films that we've been watching are for you. So it's going to be interesting to see if I can pull off like holding Raiders. And The Last Crusade was for a long time my favorite movie.
Oh, so this will be interesting. So
it's going to be interesting.
You've seen most of them. You've even seen the fourth one.
I saw the atrocity of the skull or whatever.
It'll be fun to re-examine that after those years.
I don't know.
And then you haven't seen the fifth one, which is The Dial of Destiny.
Yeah,
not the best title.
Okay, so we're going to watch a movie called The Game. It is Michael Douglas. This movie I actually love. I think this is as close to a perfect example of its genre as I've seen. And I don't want to. If you don't, do you know anything about this movie?
This is like the one Fincher I've never seen.
Okay. So I'm not going to tell anyone anything about this movie because I want you to go in blind.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is a good kind of transitional from the fantasy type stuff to the more, I don't know if you can say Indiana Jones is more realistic, but more real world
it's not
based.
Yeah, Indy's not fantasy.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it's, no orcs and elves.
Yeah, no orcs and elves. So we're gonna watch The Game. It's a David Fincher. I think it's 1999. I think, and I don't actually know what it's rated, but
it is rated R.
Okay, well,
for language and some violence and sexuality. I don't know.
Anyhow, it's on VidAngel. So if you are one of my fellow VidAngel advocates,
97 too, by the way.
Oh, 97.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites, one of my 5 stars. So
I'm excited.
Enjoy The Game if you're gonna watch it, and if not, we'll see you in a couple of weeks for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, and we all will lose the game as we talk about the game.
Bum.
Okay. We love you so much.
Love you.
Thanks for joining us on this big epic quest for Lord of the Rings.
Which is now finally over.
It's finally over.
Thank goodness. For me.
It's been a good ride, I think.
For you.
Yeah. Plus now you've seen them again. Yeah. I mean, that the whole podcast is to force you to watch these movies. So we can talk about them or something. Yeah. Which we have on podcast. We love you.
We do love you.
Think critically.
Thanks. Please.
Bye.
Welcome to the desert of the real.